Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. It is almost the end of the NFL season. We are coming up on the final weekend. And sure, there are very exciting things happening after the NFL regular season, such as the playoffs and then eventually free agency. But there's something that happens even quicker, and that would be Black Monday. So I'm going to talk about the coaches that I think will get fired for Black Monday and the potential replacements for those coaches. Now, there have already been 3 NFL coaches that have been fired so far this season. Those would be Frank Reich in Carolina, Brandon Staley in Los Angeles for the Chargers, and Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas. So all 3 of those coaches were fired mid-season, made videos about all 3 of them. You can feel free to go check it out. But I have a feeling we're not quite done. The first coach I'm going to talk about that I think has no chance of surviving the year is Ron Rivera. The Commanders haven't even had a winning record under Ron Rivera. And while they did win the division, that was 7-9 with him in his first season, they just haven't been the same since. They've struggled, they've just been mediocre. And based on their roster, they should be performing better. They've been in a rebuild stage for a while. And especially when you add on the fact that it's new ownership in Washington and they're going to want to make some changes, I do not think Ron Rivera is going to last very long. This year, the Commanders have been bad. After a promising start, they have just been awful these past couple of weeks. So I think we will have to say goodbye to Ron Rivera, who I love as a person, but he is just not the right coach right now for the Washington Commanders. The other teams I'm going to talk about are all in one division, the NFC South. In the NFC South, we have already lost Frank Reich, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, in his first season, who's just struggled badly. But I have a feeling at least one of his divisional counterparts will not be far behind him. All 3 of the teams in that division that are left, the Falcons, the Saints, and the Buccaneers, have struggled this year. So all 3 coaches could end up being on the hot seat. However, personally, I suspect that Todd Bowles will be safe in Tampa Bay because of the fact that Baker Mayfield has been much better than expected, and this wasn't supposed to be a great year for Tampa Bay overall. Plus the fact that Bruce Arians, who retired and appointed Todd Bowles to be a successor, is still with the organization, so I believe that helps Todd Bowles' case as well. So, assuming the Buccaneers win the division, which I'm sure they will, that all they have to do is beat the Panthers this weekend, and maybe they'll lose, because it's the NFL, you never know what will happen, but I am sure Todd Bowles will be back next year, although then he could be on the hot seat. The other 2 coaches are a lot tougher to say. Arthur Smith in Atlanta is in his 3rd season, and so far all he's done is posted 2 identical 7-10 records. Right now, the Falcons are 7-9 and are about to play the Saints. If they lose, they'll be 7-10 again. And honestly, there are a lot of things going about Arthur Smith, such as the fact that he doesn't use his star young players, such as Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. All 3 of those guys have been drafted in the first round, in fact, in the top 10 by the Falcons in the past 3 years. And yet they're not being used properly, especially rookie Bijan Robinson, rookie running back. And the other fact is that he just hasn't had a quarterback work for him. Desmond Ridder, especially this season, just did not work. And Taylor Heineke, while better, still isn't great. And sometimes quarterbacks are just bad, and there's nothing you can do to fix them. You can put them with the best situation, the best coach in the league, and it won't help. But other times, the development of a quarterback has to be placed on the coach. And if it doesn't work out, sometimes that can be the coach's fault. So, I believe Arthur Smith will be fired because of the fact that he hasn't quite used his roster correctly. But also because of the fact that the Falcons are a team that should be improving. They're a young team, they have plenty of talent, and they've definitely improved on paper over these past couple of seasons. So why are they only finishing with 7 wins again? Likely. That is why I think Arthur Smith will truly be fired. Dennis Allen in New Orleans is the last guy I'm going to talk about. I don't like Dennis Allen. I think he should be fired. However, I doubt he'll be fired because I think the Saints management is patient enough that they're going to give him a bit longer. I think they'll give him another season because they'll probably finish, I think they're 8-8 right now, so assuming they beat the Falcons, then they'll finish 9-8, which again isn't as good as I would think, especially given that assuming the Buccaneers win, they will not make the playoffs. But I still think it's close enough that the management will let him stay. Even though I don't think he should stay because I think the Saints have a very talented roster on paper, but they're not playing up to that. And I believe that should be blamed on Dennis Allen. But I suspect he will end up staying this season. The last coach that's been talked about a lot, which I'll mention here, even though I normally wouldn't, is Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is a future Hall of Fame coach. He won 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. And while they have struggled in these past couple of seasons, I don't envision any scenario where Bill Belichick gets fired. And I might be eating my words on this one in a couple of days, but I just don't see it happening. Now, what I could see happening is them pushing Bill Belichick into retirement, or maybe pushing him more into an advisory role with the team. But I cannot see them straight up firing Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick going and joining a different organization. He's just done too much with the Patriots. He's had too much of a history. They can't get rid of him. Unless Bill Belichick pulls a Sean Payton or a John Gruden and retires and then comes out of retirement. Which maybe is a possibility, but I don't see that happening either. But what I can say for certain is Bill Belichick is not going to get fired. So if all of my predictions go to plan, that is 5 NFL head coaches who will have been fired, which means 5 coaching vacancies. So who would be some of the best candidates to fill that vacancy? Well, I am so glad you asked. The best candidate overall, and I think I mentioned him last year, same kind of thing, is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, joined the Cowboys to be their defensive coordinator, where the Cowboys' defense has been phenomenal for years. All 3 years he's been there, they have just been ridiculously good. And he's been close to getting head coaching jobs the past couple of years, although it sounds like he's actually turned them down. But I suspect that will change. Now, I think that Dan Quinn is going to get a head coaching job this year, assuming he'll accept it. But someone is going to offer him a job because of how good this Cowboys defense has been again and again. Even this year, when they've struggled with injuries, the defense is still just as good. The backups have been just as good as the starters have been. So I can't see any scenario where Dan Quinn doesn't at least get offered a head coaching job. Another former head coach who is now a defensive coordinator would be Brian Flores. This is a bit more of a stretch because Brian Flores is in his first season back as a defensive coordinator and has had a couple controversies around him ensuing the NFL. So it'll be tough to say if a team's willing to take a chance on him. While I do think he's an amazing coach and would be a good fit, I'm not sure that NFL teams would want to take the risk. But what I will say is the change in the Vikings defense this year, especially with Danielle Hunter, has been amazing. It has just been, this Vikings defense has been very good despite the fact that they as well have struggled with injuries. That whole team has struggled with injuries, but that Vikings defense has been good. And even when Brian Flores was in Miami, he proved that he was a good head coach. He didn't struggle at all. Honestly, he played pretty well. So I could see Brian Flores getting a head coaching job in the very near future again. But will it happen this year? It's tough to say. Another defensive coordinator I want to talk about is Terrell Austin. Another guy that I'm less sure will get hired this year, but I'm sure will find a job soon. Terrell Austin is the Steelers' defensive coordinator. And I don't need to explain to you how good the Steelers' defense has been these past couple of seasons. Alex Highsmith has broken out into a superstar. TJ Watt is consistently one of the best, if not the best, defenders in the league. Minkah Fitzpatrick is arguably the best safety in the league. This entire defense has played amazingly under Terrell Austin. So I suspect we'll see Terrell Austin with a job pretty darn soon. Will it happen this year? I'm not so sure. The Steelers' defense, while has been great, I don't think they've gotten the credit they deserve this year the same way. But I suspect in the near future, Terrell Austin will have a head coaching job. Aaron Glenn is another defensive coordinator who I think is probably going to get a job this year, but if not, he'll get one soon. He is the Lions defensive coordinator, and people seem to like the Lions coaching assistants right now. So I suspect Aaron Glenn could see that very soon, especially with the fact that the defense has played really well, especially Aiden Hutchinson amongst others. And I think defensive coordinators, as you've seen, I've mentioned quite a few right now, I think they're popular, and they're going to get more popular in the NFL right now, because I think teams are starting to see taking a chance on these young offensive guys sometimes works, but doesn't always. Some teams want a more stable, secure coach. And all of the guys I've just named are some great examples. Switching to the offensive side, though, with another Lions coordinator would be Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. He is the one that's overseen Jared Goff play quite well, actually, despite the fact that, well, no one was expecting him to play well. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a superstar. The running game with David Montgomery and Jamal Williams last year, and Jahmyr Gibbs this year, and DeAndre Swift last year, and a bunch of other guys. The running game's been amazing under him. The offensive line's been great. So, Ben Johnson is a guy that I suspect will get hired. Even though I don't think the Lions offense is great, and honestly I think Ben Johnson's a bit overrated as a candidate, I do think he is a good person, and like I was just talking about, he is one of those young offensive-minded coaches. So some teams still want that. Another young coach, but switching back to the defensive side of the ball, is Mike Macdonald, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. The Ravens' defense has just been on fire this year. It's been amazing how good they've been. And it's a team effort. Every single player is playing extremely well. And we can give that credit to Mike Macdonald, the former Michigan defensive coordinator who went and joined the Ravens a couple years back, has just made this Ravens defense so amazing. So I suspect we will see Mike Macdonald as a head coach this year. I think the Ravens defense has been good enough. I can't see Mike Macdonald not getting a head coaching job by the end of this cycle. The last guy I'm going to talk about, and this is back to the offensive side, in Miami, Frank Smith, the Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator. Do I need to tell you how good Miami's offense has been recently? Tua Tagovailoa has broken out into a superstar these past couple of seasons. Tyreek Hill is hitting personal bests in Miami. Jalen Waddle is another top 10 receiver, I would say, in the league. The running game, especially this season, has been amazing with Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert. This whole team has been playing extremely well, especially this offense. So I suspect we will see Frank Smith getting a head coaching job soon. Especially given that Mike McDaniel came from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. And Mike McDaniel has been very popular. You could argue he's almost making himself his own Kyle Shanahan, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I suspect we will see multiple members of his coaching tree get their own head coaching jobs soon enough. And I suspect they'll start with Frank Smith. The biggest knock, though, on Frank Smith is some people might think it's the mastermind in Mike McDaniel that is the one controlling this offense here, not Frank Smith. And it is tough to say, but I think someone's going to take a flyer on Frank Smith, and I doubt they'll regret it. But we'll have to see. Black Monday is, well, this coming Monday. So that is when we'll find out what coaches are going to be fired, and eventually who the replacements are going to be. And trust me, I will be there reporting on it. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys again soon.